I first got into photography when I was in high school. I was very lucky. I was one of those students who found what they loved very early on. I think I was 16 years old when I first started taking photographs, and very quickly realized that I loved it, and very quickly decided that this is really what I wanted to do. So I've really had photography as a goal in my life for a very long time now, and something that I've always worked towards. My photography teacher in high school was a man called Byron Baldwin, who taught photography at Myers Park High School here in Charlotte for over 30 years. And he's a well-known photography teacher. He has taught many professional photographers in the region. And it was, you know, he had a profound effect on me, a profound influence on me when I first had him. He was the one who first taught me to use a camera, first taught me to understand how to look through the lens and see the world in a clear way. He taught me the basics of composition, and he taught me how to talk about photography and how to start to understand photography. And you know, gave me an excellent basis on which I could then build as I moved into college and into my career as a photographer.
Well, I taught for 30 years at Myers Park High School. That was my primary job, and then part-time at just about everywhere else, every college and university in the area for the most part. And I was one of the founding members of the Light Factory in 1973. And that was just a bunch of photographers getting together and once a month, and eventually, you know, having a gallery where you could hang things on the wall. And it has gone through many iterations since then, and it's quite successful now. So that was it was nice to see that succeed. Byron Baldwin now teaches here at Central Piedmont, all in the same department. So it is wonderful to teach, to have as a colleague somebody who was once my very first photography teacher. It's nice working with him here. It's nice that the two of us both have, I think, an equal amount of effect on the students. And even though he was my teacher, and I photograph in a somewhat similar style, perhaps, to him. Our opinions have often quite differed over the years, and over time the kind of subject matter that we have gravitated towards has become quite different. So I think we often have, you know, there's still a lot of differences between what we teach. Byron likes to work in the studio more. He enjoys the digital darkroom more. I enjoy outside a little bit more. I enjoy the traditional wet darkroom perhaps a little bit more. So there are certainly differences.
I've really had great experiences with my instructors here at CPCC. My first photography class ever was with James Spence. It was photo appreciation, and one of my favorite things about it was all the time he spent just showing us both his own images and images by other photographers to inspire us and give us different ways to think about recording an image and different visual ideas and things to look at to photograph. Byron has also had a big influence on me. When I first took his class, he was putting together an exhibit at the Light Factory of his friend Steve Pirelli's photography. And that was one of the first things to really get me interested in street photography. And all these moments that a lot of people wouldn't notice that can make a great photograph.
I had a really good experience with the professors and instructors at CPCC. They were very intentional about experiential education, not just instructing us in the classroom, but also taking us outside of the classroom on plenty of field trips to places around Charlotte and even as far away as the Outer Banks and the North Carolina mountains.
Yeah, when I take students to galleries to see exhibitions, basically it's to show them what other people have done with the same ideas that they're working with. And often that can be very revealing. You know, an idea that someone else has pursued may never have occurred to them as something that they might do. But you know, people who are accomplished enough to have their work hung on the walls and exhibits, you know, are worth paying attention to. You can learn a lot from what other people have done.
What I absolutely love about photography, though, is perhaps its sheer potential for showing both the beauty and the tragedy of our world. Great photographs don't necessarily have to be beautiful objects. We sometimes think of that, but sometimes there can be ugly, tragic things that can be imaged that could also be powerful and profound images, and images that have great artistic value. So I love that dichotomy between beauty and tragedy, or ugliness and beauty, if you will. That can be equally powerful in imagery.
I really love how it forces me to engage the outside world to make art. I'm really introverted, and I have to go out and find things to take pictures of, and there's a sort of interaction with your environment that I really enjoy.
What I love about photography is it has gave me this sense of passion inside of me, something that I have been kind of looking forward to for a long time that I have not been able to find. And when I started the school here and started taking photography, when I started going to James's class, he is such a great speaker that it just really inspired me to go out and start shooting. And the more I shot, the more it just made me feel like this warm, fuzzy feeling inside. And it just continues to do that no matter where I'm at. It just brings out the total happiness and joy in me to be able to capture an image on camera and then go back into the darkroom and see it develop as a photograph. It's like magic, and that's all I know how to describe it.
I love photography's ability to have a dual role as both signifying something about the world and something about the person that took the image. When you photograph something, you by definition you're making an image of something, and so therefore you are producing a document which reveals information about something out there in the world. But at the same time, what somebody has photographed and the way they have photographed it signifies something about them as well. So there's this reciprocal to nature to what you photograph. You photograph something, and in that way you are observing it and creating an observation. But that observation in reverse also, in a way, can create a situation where you start to reveal something about yourself. So there's that aspect of photography that I also love.
My interest in photography came, I took a course in college that didn't inspire me at all, but I learned some technical skills. And mainly I used photography just to photograph friends, and I was in the Navy, took some pictures then. But one morning in Charleston, I was in Charleston in the Navy, there was some fog that rolled into the battery, and the way that the fog and the trees interacted, I took a picture there that sort of spoke to me. I said, well, this is well beyond what I had done before. And I thought, well, there's some possibility with this that I hadn't considered before. So I started taking it a little more seriously and pursued it from that point on. And it's been good for me.
My name's Jacob Yunt, and I've been a student here at CPCC for about 3 semesters now. And I've been studying photography all 3 of these semesters, and I love to take photographs. When I first got into photography, I was 14 years old. I was in a little garage band, and they had kicked me out, and so I put down the bass guitar, and literally the same day, and this is 2006, I picked up a camera, and I was really bored, and so I just started taking pictures of my friend for his MySpace, and I don't know, I kind of liked it. I felt kind of cool, and I was doing something, and it looked good, and so it just kind of started from there, and I haven't really stopped since then.
How do I prepare myself to take a photo? That is, and that varies depending on what kind of image you're taking. I mean, photography is such a big subject. I mean, you can take a picture of anything that exists with a camera. So thinking of it that way, in a way, photography can therefore touch upon anything in the world. So in a way, photography can touch on any subject. So it depends what you're photographing. If I'm doing a job commercial job for somebody, then it's a different approach. Then it's about preparing perhaps the studio. If I'm doing an on-location shoot, it's about scouting the location before you actually go there to take the pictures. One of the rules of on-location photography, like architectural photography, or if you're doing a wedding, you go to the building and you look at it, observe it at different times of day from different points of view to know when you should go back there and at what time. If you're shooting a wedding, for instance, you should always go to the location where the reception is going to be, or where up to the church at the time at which it's going to be. See where the lighting is coming from. Figure out where you want to stand. Maybe bring some people with you as test subjects, so you do some test shot shooting. That kind of thing. So when you do get there, on the day of the event, you've been there before. It isn't the first time you've seen the location. You're familiar with it. You know where you want people to be. It makes it smoother and easier for you. You'll take better pictures, and you will obviously seem more competent to the people that have hired you.
To me, specifically as a documentary photographer, making an image means having a longer awareness of a timeline of what's happening in front of me than you would normally need to have in order to have an interaction with a group of people or an event. I need to enter that situation prepared with knowledge of what's going on and the history of the events that led up to it, as well as the people involved, and then be able to sort of project over the next few minutes to hours, as best that I can using past experience, what's going to go on, so that I can position myself to capture the shots, the type of shots that I want to, and the kind of shots that illustrate what is going on in any particular event.
Now, there is a lot more to it when you are taking, for instance, when you're shooting art photography. When I'm out shooting images that, for me, are images that are my creative work, my portraiture, my street photography, my images of the natural world. In this case, there is a different things that I do to prepare to take photographs. Since now I am focusing on artistic creativity, I want to find that artistic creativity inside of me, not just in my mind intellectually, but also in my heart. And often that takes time, literal time. So I might, for instance, if I'm going to do some nature photography, my favorite thing to do, and I go on a hike in the woods or something, perhaps I'm in the mountains, I don't just go off and start photographing right away. It often takes time. It is this process of getting into the right mental framework where your mind is clear, and when your mind is more clear, you are able to more clearly see your surroundings.
My favorite approach is to just go out and walk around, just around my neighborhood, or find some new place I've never been to explore, and I just sort of photograph what I find. I like that I have to be thinking about what I see and noticing all the little details to photograph.
It's just the way you live. The things you read, the films you watch, the music you listen to, the life experiences you have, all those feed into the way you see the world. An example, a Larry McMurtry book I read a number of years ago called The Last Picture Show. It was about a picture show in a small town that closed, and then the work of Edward Hopper, a painter whose work I admire a lot. The way he uses light at night. Those two things working on me enabled me to see a picture one time of a movie theater at night. And I took that picture. That led to taking another picture, then another picture, all in the same part of town at the same time of night. But I would never have seen the original picture if I hadn't have experienced Hopper's work at night and Larry McMurtry's book. And so that's where those photographs came from. And I would never have seen that otherwise. So that's the way I prepare myself to photograph, is to absorb other things and to have a lot of life experiences.
The photographers who have inspired me, I'd say a lot of them are the early women photographers like Imogen Cunningham and Julia Margaret Cameron and Gertrude Kiesebier. But I also enjoy the surrealist photographers like Man Ray and several others. They're the ones that really went out to make photography an art form and to change the ways that artists and especially photographers, can express themselves through photography.
Photography is a marketable skill in many ways. It can be, there's a wide variety of different commercial applications for photography. Since its very inception, it has been something which people have been willing to pay for. In the very beginning of photography, photographic portraiture initially became the first big commercial application of photography. It makes sense. There were all of these people around who obviously never had their image taken, had never been photographed. And so it therefore became a wonderful thing to do, to have your picture taken. It became a way for people of the time, of the 1830s and 40s, when photography was new, for taking part in this new modern world that was emerging, to take part in this emerging modernity. And so that was its first marketable skill, and its first marketable application. Since then, however, obviously it has expanded, and there is advertising photography of all sorts of things. That is one of the most common ways a commercial photographer would work in advertising. There's also, obviously, a wide variety of other things: construction, real estate, so forth, doing annual reports for companies. There is on-location photography. Associated with portraiture, we obviously have fashion photography, news photography, journalism, documentary photography. These are all other fields. There is also, of course, more very specific and largely technical photographic fields like scientific and medical photography. There is investigative photography that used with police departments and so forth. So there are a wide variety of ways in which photography is marketable. There is also obviously art photography, and in some respects artists can have marketable skills and can indeed sell their work. But often I think the best commercial photographers are also great artists with the camera, and they bring that artistry into the kinds of imagery that they make.
Well, this is very much a visual society. We communicate with each other visually probably more than we do any other way. And if you have those visual skills that you can, you can make a photograph that communicates, that makes you more marketable.
Ultimately, though, the marketability of any photographer is dependent upon the person and the individual, not as much as the quality of your images as you might think. Successful commercial photographers are people who are also successful business people, understand how to run a business, how to meet deadlines, how to find and keep clients, and some people are better at that than others. The marketable success of a commercial photographer is I think, equally divided between your skill in business and your skill as a photographer.
Hi, I'm Nathaniel Pierce. I'm a local fashion photographer in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I started at CPCC in their photo program. Lately I've been doing a lot of standard fashion shoots, usually for clients that are just starting up, or models that are wanting to get into the modeling industry, so I help them out with their startup portfolio. So it's usually nothing too drastic with those photo shoots. But then I will occasionally get a client that wants something over the top, which is always my favorite. So we usually go through a few fashion magazines. I'll have them write up their concepts, I'll write up mine. We'll usually meet up for coffee, mash the two concepts together, and create something extremely awesome.
10 years in the future, photography will have obviously advanced advanced technically. There are always been technical advancements in photography. They're always happening. I think its essential qualities will be the same. In the history of photography, 10 years isn't very much. I think in terms of specific changes that we're going to see over the next 10 years, obviously the one main thing is the new big advancement in camera technology is what are known as high dynamic range cameras, which is really the first big change in the way the lens has been used since the time the camera was invented. So I think most cameras will probably be high dynamic range cameras within 10 years. And that just means that we're going to have an even higher level of clarity and an even better level of exposure and an even better ability to show a greater depth of field. But this is going to happen both with video cameras and film cameras. So that's certainly something I'm looking forward to. Can anybody shoot a fantastic photograph? That's a good question. That's a good thing to suggest. And you have to say that yes, anybody is capable of taking a fantastic photograph, but largely that would be a very happy accident. But photography is a medium, perhaps a medium unlike any other in the arts, that accidental masterpieces can be created, and that has been something that's happened throughout the history of photography. It's not something all photographers always want to hear, but it's true. Occasionally somebody can just get a masterpiece by being in the right moment at the right time, by seeing the right thing at the right time.
Anybody can learn to be a competent photographer. Anyone can learn the skills. I'm suspicious of people who think that they're gifted. They can really see things. That's a rare occasion that happens. Most people have to learn from the beginning and just learn all the craft. And when people refer to people as being particularly gifted or talented, it's usually a lot of hard work that goes behind that. And that's where your skills come from.
Is there such a thing as a photographer's block? I really think there is such a thing, and it is similar to writer's block. It is, and you know, that moment where you're just not sure where your next great picture is coming from. I've had that feeling many times where I feel like I've already taken my last great picture and I won't get another one. But of course you do. But sometimes there is this block. Sometimes you go out to take photographs and you just don't feel inspiration. You're not seeing anything that is calling you to photograph it. I think the way around that is to just take pictures and maybe not think about it too much. Perhaps maybe you get a block because you're overthinking about it. You're overthinking it. You're thinking too hard about what it is you want to photograph. In those situations, I just take photographs without thinking. I try to empty my mind and snap away. And then over time, it starts to make sense to you, and maybe you start to get through it.
See, I get photographer's block a lot. Kind of in the middle of one right now, and pretty much every time it happens to me, I approach it differently each time because I'm a little bit different when it happens. But I'll usually try to dive into other photography books, look at what all the other great photographers did, what kind of work they did. I'll go out and just try to shoot anyway and just keep pushing film or just keep taking exposures on my digital camera, and just eventually something good will come out of that. And it may not be during the time I have photographer's block, but I'll look at that material at a later date and actually deem it good quality work, and that's basically how I deal with photographer's block.
Have former students returned with their success stories? Yes, they have, many times, and it's always been a wonderful pleasure to hear from them when that has happened. Often they've simply come back by to show me images they've taken or what they're doing, or they've called me or emailed me or written me. But yeah, I've heard from many of them over the years, and there are some that I still keep in contact with. So there are many students that have had success stories, jobs they've gotten, awards they've won, contests they've entered, those kind of things. So yeah, I do hear from plenty of students, and it's always satisfying to know what they've been up to.
Yeah, quite a few former students have done well in photography. They're all over the place. A couple of Pulitzer Prizes, covers of major magazines, and fine art photographers, photojournalists, picture editors. A number of them are picture editors now. Some have gone into motion pictures. One is a very successful director of photography in Los Angeles. Yeah, quite a few have stayed with it, and that's gratifying. Yeah.
In the past year or so, I've worked on a number of different projects. I've been documenting a gentleman that's running for mayor in Mooresville, North Carolina, as well as shooting for the Mayor Fox re-election campaign on a volunteer basis. He's the current mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina. And on top of that, I've been doing behind-the-scenes photography for the TED Talks conference that recently happened here in Charlotte. And in amongst all of that, I've been covering the Occupy Charlotte protest as the Occupy movement has begun to spread across the country. I want to make sure that this historical event for the city is well documented and captured.
Yes, I am currently in the class. It's called Gallery Apprenticeship class, which is basically the class puts together a gallery for the students here at CPCC. We hang and exhibit and install the photographs, and we also handpick who we want to be in the show. And this year, the students of the class have decided to choose me, Kelly Elliott, and Jacob Yount, and we're going to be hanging our stuff on the 19th of October, and we will be having a reception on the 20th of October. But our exhibit is going to portray some of the things that we have learned in digital and in black and white class, and a lot of it is going to be black and white with just a handful of digital prints. And it's going to be on poetry and landscapes as well.
Now, what I'm currently working on now is it's an exhibition with a fellow photography student named Kelly Elliott, and it's called Homme Femme, and the CP library is helping us put it, showcase this work, and it's up at the Balance Art Gallery. And it'll be on for about 6 weeks, and it's probably the most fun I've had in putting on a show ever. So I'm pretty much just grateful for what CPCC has done for me in terms of my photography and teaching me what I need to know and exposing me to things that I've never seen before and allowing me to showcase all of my work and giving me sort of a platform to stand on and giving me sort of a springboard into where I go from here. And that's my story.
Problem was, I couldn't ever, my videos, I just couldn't ever come up with anything creative. I was real creative as a photographer with video. All I could ever do was copy other people's stuff. I could just do like mock satires of things from I'd seen on TV. I could never think of anything original, you know? And so it was just harder. And also the whole idea of video was I had to work with a team, you know? And that's the big difference is it's a big crew, you know? And that was a little harder. I find I like to be in front of the camera more than behind it when it came to video. But with photography, you know, anyway, whatever. Plus, we had a brutal video teacher. You think George is bad? My God. Like Sergeant Dan, we used to call him, because he refused to call anybody by their first name. Everybody was just last name until you'd proven yourself to him that you were a decent video person. You know what I mean? I remained Spence for 2 years. You know what I mean? I don't think I ever got my first name. All right, sorry. I'll shut up now and start doing it properly.